make sure the audio is working.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So that's all working, which is fantastic. We just had a bit of a fun time setting these things up. Hello, everyone. Let's have a look who we've got here. Alan, another Alan, Alison, Andrea, Andrew. Oh, okay. If your name begins with A, you're going to get a shout out. I'm going to go to the Zs. So Tanya, Tilda, and Trina. Hello, Susan, Sue, Shona. Let's go random in the middle somewhere. Emma, Eleanor. Can you do us all a favor, please? You see the little chat box? Can you just type in the chat and say, hey, I can see you, everything's working, I can see Michelle, and I can hear Michelle. Michelle?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
So type in the chat box for us. Yay, there we go. Bang, bang, bang. Jolene, Tanya, yeah, I can hear it. Okay. Now, Barbara nailed it there, but most of you are saying hello to all panelists, which is good because that's what I wanted to do. But as you type, can you see that when you type in 2 in the panel, in the, yeah, boo, well done, Emma. In the all panelists, you can change that to all panelists and attendees, and then you can talk to everyone. Jolene just got it, well done. So choose all panelists and attendees. Tell us where you're from, what charity, where you are geographically, that kind of stuff. If you're live from a cruise ship in quarantine, whatever you are doing, let us know and let everybody else know. So go to all panelists and attendees. And Maureen and Wendy, well done, you found raise hand. Don't raise your hands, please, because you pop up and you will be immortalized in the recording of this video. So don't click your raise hand button, you clever people. But if you do want to ask a question, you can see, Michelle will go over this again in a moment, but you will see that there is a Q&A button. That's where we want questions because there are so many of you. I think this is definitely your record webinar attendance, isn't it, Michelle? Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, I think we're pushing. I think we had over 400 people register. So hello, everyone.
So that means that we won't be able to find your questions in chat. So make sure you put your questions in Q&A. Now, Christiana is helping behind the scenes. She's going to manage the chat and the questions. And if you post a question in chat, she will tell you off and come around to your house. So, and tell you, she won't go around to your house because of the lockdown. Otherwise, she would. But please, questions in Q&A. Right. Do you want to say hello to some of these wonderful people and start reading them out while I just do my last minute things?
I sure can. Hi, I can see Tilda's there. Hi, Tilda. And who else is in the list there? I saw a few people. We've got Sue down at the Spinal Trust in Christchurch. And
it's all going so quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Darren and Lou at Project Jonah. Eleanor from Community Fundraising, Community Foundations of New Zealand. Nettie.
Nettie was our scholarship winner last year. Yeah, hi, Nettie.
Congratulations. Wendy from Plunkett. I hope Plunkett's got its emergency campaign out already. Do let us know if you've got any emergency campaigns out already around COVID, and also let us know if just how things are going. Are you? We keep hearing anecdotally about some major donations being sort of postponed, things like that. Just let us know. Hey, look, we've got Ben from Kentucky Community and Technical College in the USA. Well done, Ben.
Hi, Ben. Wow.
Hello. Isn't it late there?
Yeah. Well, early, who knows?
You can now officially call this a truly international webinar, Michelle.
That's pretty cool.
9 p.m. for Ben. Okay. Hello. So, gosh, yeah. Please stop raising hands, Tanya, Georgia. Very clever. You found the raise hand button. Please don't press the raise hand button. I wish I knew how to turn that off. Otherwise, you will be appearing in the video forever. We're school-based. Oh, there's some of these comments here. We've got a load of questions as well for us already, haven't you, Michelle? But do ask questions in Q&A. Jolene has already done that. That's great. Northern Community. We are currently looking into establishing a COVID-19 emergency response. Good on you. Stop looking into it. That does not work. Do it. Okay. We are school-based, so we definitely worry about staff and students. Go on, Michelle.
Lots of schools getting in touch to ask how they going to encourage fees and things. It's a tricky time for schools.
Very much so. Right, we're going to start in 1 minute and 30 odd seconds, and then Michelle will be doing some housekeeping and stuff like that. Tanya has launched an emergency response. Can you email it to me, Tanya, during this session? Sean at Moceanic, sorry, actually do my, Sean at Moceanic.com. I'd love to see it, and then we might be cheeky and ask you if we can, share it. Steph from Barnabas Fund. Sure, how do I do that? Just email me, Sean at I'll just give you my email. Sean at Moceanic. Oh, there you go. Christiana's done it to you already. Cool. Brilliant. Thank you.
Some interesting comments there about recruitment in the sector. Some charities and organisations have already implemented recruitment restrictions.
Recruitment of whom?
Of staff.
Right.
Jobs that might have been, jobs that might have been vacant, or they were looking to increase their staffing, and they've kind of put a stop to all of that.
Right. Yes, I mean, there's so many different issues that are coming up all the time, aren't they? Barbara says, events being cancelled. We're currently dealing with 34 support groups around the country, many meeting venues which have closed doors. Wow, this is tough time. So, I mean, virtual, because they're safe, but virtual hugs all around the islands of New Zealand and Ben in Kentucky. Sorry, Ben, you are going to get picked on in a nice way. Kate and Jolene, thank you for asking questions. We are going to answer questions at the end, but it is time. So over to you, Michelle, and we can get going.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me okay.
Yep.
Fabulous. Okay, I think what a great opportunity for us to be able to respond to this this unfolding daily situation. And I think for FINZ, one of the things that we're really developing is a sense of community. I think the traditional membership model is kind of going to move forward into a much more community focused organization. And this is an example of a community coming together. It's about us sharing our ideas, sharing what everyone's doing. Nobody knows how to react in this situation. That's why we've asked Sean Triner and his expertise. I don't know if Sean needs much of an introduction. I think most of you know who Sean is. And this is times like this, we're going to lean on Sean to guide us through what can we do? What can we do to weather this storm? And so that's why we've brought everyone here today. So a huge thank you to Sean. Some housekeeping. You can dial in. Christiana has just popped up the dial-in numbers there. You can dial into this webinar. As Sean mentioned earlier, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen there. The Q&A, please use the Q&A button for your questions and keep the chat to chat. It's great to see you all chatting, but please put your questions. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of Sean's presentation, so we'll keep your questions in there. And the recording of this will be available. This is FINZ's this is a FINZ webinar, and Moceanic kindly allowed us to use their platform. So please do not contact Moceanic, Sean or Christiana for a copy of this. If you have registered, you will be sent a link to this webinar, but please be mindful it takes 24 hours for that to happen, so you're not going to get it immediately, but at some point tomorrow you will get your link and the recording of this video. And I think that's about all my housekeeping. Sean, are you ready to go?
I am, and I've just got a Kiwi emergency campaign there from Tanya, so that's good, thank you. We'll see if we get a chance to bring that up. Thank you for sharing that, it came through. Wow, like Michelle said, we really don't know much about what is going to happen. This is unprecedented. There has never been a global crisis like this since the Second World War. And it is possible that more people may die than in the Second World War, according to some of the things I've been reading. So this is really big. It is really heavy. So we need to get into it. Right. First thing I want to say, and this is like the joy part of this, so I'm not going to be a horrible, miserable person through this. We've got, as I'm sure you're trying not to be as well, because you've already seen lots of joy, the Italian singing on the balconies and things like that. And you do work in the best industry in the world. I mean, it's just fantastic. You see the guys in the bottom right-hand picture? That's Antoniano, which is a charity I've been working with in Italy. So we're kind of like about 10 days ahead in this process in terms of getting those emergency stuff together. So I've actually learned a heck of a lot over the long time, you know, a week of doing stuff. So things are changing fast. So I think you know who I am, but I've always worked in fundraising from student days, in disability, in cancer research, in medical research in general. Mental health, this is a big issue for me right now. I am really concerned about the mental health during lockdown of people, particularly elderly people, and that sort of stuff. And a lot of you will be working with vulnerable people like that. And I'm sure you are on top. I am hoping you're on top of your mental health services and our ability to provide those. You may have heard of Pareto. I set up Pareto in 2002 and stopped working there in 2017 after I sold it. And we set up Moceanic with only one goal, and that is to basically build the capacity of individual fundraisers so they can raise more money. So it's really focused on career development whilst producing actual products for your charity. So that's what we do. Michelle said, please don't email Moceanic. This is a FINZ thing. It's just using our webinar account, that's all. You can email, she said, don't email us for the download that we're going to show you. We're going to give you a link and FINZ will distribute that. But you can email us, of course, if you just want help and want some, if you want to do some work with us. We are working with lots and lots of clients, so we are there to help you. Okay, my promise to you, you lovely New Zealanders and one in Kentucky, and Jolene was feeling left out when we picked on Ben in Kentucky and said, well, I'm in Australia. Okay, well done. So anyway, we want you to go away today with the most important thing, which is already the biggest problem hurting fundraising in the world right now, is cutting of fundraising investment. I have had people say, I was just about to join membership, the board and CEO agree, but we have, this is Moceanic's membership, but we've just cut all unnecessary expenditure and we won't be, so we're really cutting back on basically learning how to respond to this. That is absolutely appalling, and we want to give you as much evidence as we can to help you. Now, there will be a recording of this and you will be getting an email, and you might want to sit down with your bosses. You could try forwarding it, but they're not likely to watch it, but you could get it in a board meeting or a senior management meeting, and that might be helpful. If you do, hello bosses, thank you very much for watching this video. And if you're watching this and you got a link sent to you, even better, well done. Anyway, so the key thing here is around making sure that we don't reduce investment. And also, I'm going to give you some ideas about mitigating against potential losses. If this were a normal natural disaster or a normal financial crisis, I would be telling you how to raise more than your potential losses. I have no idea if we're going to raise more. I know some charities are, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But some of you will have a plan to grow. So those are the things that I want us to get across. And we're going to answer questions. And we're just going to keep going until there's no more questions or we kind of wither and die. So please do keep asking questions. There's your link. We will post that in the chat and what have you. This is giving you a really useful fundraising cheat sheet, which is kind of almost like an aid memoir when you go in to fight for your budget. So it's really, really useful for you. And it's kind of very relevant to this webinar. Two most important things. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if like in Australia, a lot of charities just basically got huge windfalls, as it were, from the bushfire. There are organizations like that, but whoever you are, even if you just got lots of money, COVID-19 will impact your cause. Now, you probably know that, but I still have charities. There was last night, one of our coaches was working with an American client, and they said, oh yeah, we're not bothered, we're not changing anything. That is not what you can do now. This isn't like not being bothered about an earthquake somewhere else. I mean, of course, they're bothered about the destruction on humanity, but I mean, they're going, oh, it's not going to harm, we're just going to get on with our fundraising. You've got to be doing something slightly different. All of you, wherever you are, this is pivot time. It's not a time to abandon fundraising. It's not a time to panic, but it's a time to do some really good fundraising. So keep calm and don't stop fundraising. Don't stop what you're doing. I'm sure most of you already know that, but I know that some of you are arguing with your bosses and you're losing. So we really want to change that. So the first thing, this is real. Take it seriously. I actually originally put this slide in for a webinar I did last week. We can cross that out now because everybody knows that now. That was when, you know, Australia, US, and New Zealand was still umming and ahhing about lockdowns. Now there's no and ahs about it. Your duty of care is paramount. Obviously, celebrate this. And there's some awesome ideas that are coming from charities, the first ones in Italy, but also in other countries now, about actually turning this on its head and us charities providing services to our donors, who, if you have direct mail donors, their average age in New Zealand is about 72 years old. They are vulnerable people right now, vulnerable to the virus, vulnerable to loneliness, and other areas. So we really want to work with those people. And often these people don't know how to do their online shopping and things like that. So what can we as a charity do to help those people? They will remember you because you'll be one of the only charities that does that. Doesn't mean that you're not going to fundraise from them, by the way. Please don't think that being good to your donors and helping them is a reason not to be fundraising. This is different. In the 2008 financial crisis, the right answer was ramp up your fundraising, and everybody did and got more money. Not everybody did, but those that did got more money. Those that cut back went down. So we really, really want to be focused on those things. And yes, there are some areas, like if you're totally dependent on major donors, then that is a bit of an issue. If you're an organization that gets its income from a small number of large gifts, it's going to be a problem, and the same with events. But this isn't a normal financial crisis. So you'll see lots of people predicting, oh, in 2008, this is what happened. And they're right, but it's still not going to, we don't know what's going to happen now. But we can still take the lessons from those. It's so easy to make this worse. So if all of you want the easy way out, you can make this worse by just pulling back on your fundraising. And that would be the very worst thing to do. And it is happening time and time again. I got frustrated people emailing me going, help, my boss is cutting our income. I'm having meetings with CEOs and boards or board members to basically say, please don't do this. So fundraisers saying, please, will you meet my boss? And yeah, we are doing that with our members and what have you to try and help make sure that that doesn't happen. And then you are probably going to have direct, immediate, and medium-term revenue hits, whether that's from major donors or events. Got lots of questions about those. However, let's split the vulnerabilities into two. External event cancellations. This is the first and immediate one that has already had an enormous impact and will destroy some charities. They are not going to survive. There's also supply disruptions. Direct mail, particularly coming from China, has already been disrupted. So those big packages, we really don't know what's going to happen with mail houses and post offices. Are they going to be disrupted? Any mailings that you're getting out now, I would really emphasize to capture people's emails and phone numbers just in case postage begins to falter in any way. Depends on which country you're in and what have you. And also other supply. So any of you who use face-to-face acquisition, this is UNICEF in Brazil, but I know face-to-face is huge in New Zealand. And we really want to be basically, if you know you're doing face-to-face, you can't. So if there's any debate, just stop it right now. It is your social responsibility. Do not do it, whatever the agencies, whatever they say. And I really hope that the agencies don't go bust. And we have agencies who are clients who are probably quite annoyed with me right now. I used to own Pareto Phone, lots of people in a room. I would just close it right now and do a distributed, set up the technology for a distributed system so it can be calling from homes. but do not do face-to-face right now, please. And of course, there's the economic problems. These are things that you can't do a lot about. They're going to happen to you, even with face-to-face. If you don't cancel it, it's going to get cancelled anyway. Take control. Work out what the gross income that you would have made from those donors that you're not going to recruit, and we're going to put that onto our deficit line when we do an emergency campaign. Anyway, with no idea what's going to happen to the economy, it bounced in, boom, boom, bang. It's just bouncy, 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 which means major donors are being, a bit, I'm not sure how much money I've got, which is fair enough. Internal vulnerability. The biggest problem, it's a great cartoon. You have full accountability for your P&L. Great, where are my controls? That one lever, if revenue drops, pull it. What does it do? It cuts your marketing budget. Just replace the word marketing with fundraising and you get the idea. So that's what's going to happen if people, well, already where people fearing a drop of income have cut fundraising budget, which has therefore self-fulfilled that they will lose income. The other one is Franklin Roosevelt with his very famous quote, New Deal, back in the huge depression, the Great Depression. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that is a real problem because even if your revenue, even if you're frightened your revenue is going to go down so you make cuts, that's going to make it fulfill it. We've seen this before. The Boxing Day tsunami, 2004, we call it tsunami suicide, where many organizations thought it would harm their fundraising, so they cut their fundraising, so it did harm their fundraising. Whereas many other organizations carried on. Same thing in the bushfires. In Australia recently, huge bushfires, many organizations were basically getting out there saying, help, we need your help, we're working on bushfires. Their money went zooming up and hundreds of millions of dollars more than normal were donated. Some charities cut their fundraising because they thought that the bushfire would impact fundraising. So it did. Or they thought, well, it's insensitive right now. But other charities used that increased capacity basically and increased their revenue during the bushfire. So the key there is when things are tough, you spend more, not less on fundraising. You communicate more with your donors. All of you should be upping your emails to at least 2 a week if you have a decent email list. Your social at least once a week, once a day, preferably more, if there's ones worth bothering with. And your mailings should be weekly through COVID, weekly direct mail to your donors. That's what you need to do right now to avoid suicide. So tsunami suicide, but there was also Katrina suicide, particularly in the US, global financial crisis suicide, especially in the US, and more recently bushfire suicide. So we don't know. I'm not going to predict. Is your fundraising, if you just carry on as normal, is it going to be up? Is it going to be the same? Or is it going to be down? It doesn't, of course it matters in the end, but it doesn't matter on the decisions that you're going to make right now, because the very worry that it might be down tells you to spend more money on fundraising and do all of those things that you know you should do. Increase the number of communications, telephone calls to donors, that sort of thing. Key here, do brilliant fundraising. Do absolutely brilliant fundraising. All right, now, depending on your organization, isn't that amazing that people get cartoons like that out so fast? Anyway, what impact is it going to have on your organization is going to vary. And it's going to be varied, depending on your type of cause. A very tiny minority of charities are going to be charities where there's no significant impact. For whatever reason, and most likely they have a really good monthly giving program. They've got big reserves. So really they're just going to weather the storm and they're okay. I still think for most of those, they really should find ways of talking about their cause during COVID to make sure you maintain your space, if you like. So anyway, there's also frontline organizations like mental health phone lines, hospital foundations, hospitals, hospices, schools, organization where it is having a direct and immediate impact on your work. Arts are the most obvious ones. So you guys, I'm really hoping there's some arts questions later, because we've received some amazing stuff and some terrible stuff from some of the art organizations that I support. And the last one, which you could be in category 2 and 3, and that is when your income is down and you're not on the and you aren't on the front line. Sorry, so you your income is down, you aren't on the front line, and what are you going to do about that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you a little bit of language here. I'm going to try and get this right myself. When I refer to an emergency appeal, that is frontline working in COVID, emergency. I need extra resources to help people with COVID. I need extra resources to get kids taught at home. I need extra resources to stop our theatre company going bust. That's what I'm going to... if you're frontline, that's an emergency. Now, a crisis is for the organizations, perhaps like environmental charities, who aren't directly impacted in the same way. They're not really frontline dealing with people with COVID. For those organizations, we're going to go for crisis. And this is because it's a financial crisis for them. Right? And we're going to do two different approaches, but they're very, very similar. It's just the story is different. But for both of them, we desperately need your money right now. What can we do? If there's no significant impact, which when I wrote this webinar, I thought there might be some organizations that might just breeze through this. Right now, I don't think that is the case. And I really don't think that there's anyone watching this where there is going to be no significant impact in the ability for you to deliver your services, do your work or whatever. So you're probably all going to be doing at least a COVID crisis campaign, but you might be doing a COVID emergency campaign around the emergency that is COVID. Don't change your fundraising plans. Do not do anything else. Don't pull back, but mention COVID in your copy. If you're one of those organizations that is not really been impacted, and I'm not going to dwell on that because I can't think of many, but here is an example from the Australian Conservation Foundation. It was the first such example that I got in. I'm a donor. And she's basically, this might not be the email expecting. I know this is a time of uncertainty. The truth is we had an important work planned before any of us knew the extent of coronavirus. It's good to mention it. I think it could be mentioned differently, but it's good to mention it. That's all I'm going to say about organizations that don't really think they're going to be affected, because you are. Let's say those ones who are going to be in that emergency phase. Your mission involves COVID. So you know who you are because it's already having an impact. This really is your time. This is when you do what WWF just did. So horrendous bushfires. WWF's revenue for last year was like $30 million. During the bushfire campaign, they raised about $30 million, or it will be $30 million. So there's, it's an amazing transformation for that organization. They pivoted fast. They basically stopped their current fundraising activities and replaced them with bushfire communications. If you're directly impacted by COVID, so if you're an overseas aid charity or anything like that, even if you're going, oh yeah, but I don't know, I work at Save the Kids or something and we haven't declared an emergency, it's going to be impacted, and you still really want to get out there and start talking about it because it needs to be in your campaigns. And I am working with a charity who's going to launch, they only make $2 million a year. They're launching a $10 million emergency and crisis, because they're basically worried about their finances, and at the same time they are they're going to be financially down, and they are needed right now for the community. Here's an example. This is a British-based organization, or at least the fundraiser we work with is based in the UK, international charity that works with people with disabilities, children with disabilities in China. So they were one of the first to market. And just on Monday, I had no more examples. However, I got my first email not long ago from a small cancer charity in Queensland that basically helps provide transport and things, and they launched this campaign. Awesome language. This is by far one of the hardest messages I've ever had to write. Really personal, first person, singular, nice stuff. As I write this, I still can't believe the situation we are following in. And then they were, I actually just looked again just before we started. I did a screen grab about 10 minutes before this webinar, and then I did another screen grab, and you can see that their revenue is coming in pretty quick. She told me that her open rate is over, I think she said 30-odd%. It's on my phone, so I'd have to look. She texted me. It's fantastic news for them, and they are going to help recover. The 177,000 is the amount of money that they think that they're going to be down already. They can see from events and things that they're going to probably lose. So they're trying to recover that. I'm pretty confident that they will. They'll get a couple of major donors in here. They might relaunch this with a match gift, and they will be emailing this out at least 3 or 4 times, just changing that email in the next few days. But they want to be doing, well, they should be. If you're watching, guys, make sure you email twice a week about that campaign. What if your income is down but you're not on the front line? That is that third category. That charity was on the front line, that cancer charity, because it's really, they can't do their jobs right now in the right way. But if you're out there, well, you're still probably going to be impacted. Biggest one is going to be in events. So I've actually got an organization that was saying, well, we're not really frontline, but they do work with homeless people. So I'm gonna argue they are frontline, but anyway. And they have a big event. And you, even if you haven't been ordered to cancel, you should cancel events. At least 3 months away. Partly because maybe it'll be okay in 4 months and your event could go ahead, or 3 months. But it's probably going to be not that well attended. And if you cancel it now or postpone it now, at least you're in control and you can do stuff about it right now. Whereas if you wait and then it gets cancelled because you've got no choice, then you haven't got control. The only thing is you might cancel publicly to your donors, but not cancel the venue until you're ordered to, and then your insurance and stuff should hopefully, or they should refund. But just you be careful on the small print of cancelling, but do cancel. Then try and bring it online where you can. So this organization in Vermont in the US, so one of our members, she said, oh my gosh, I'm in real trouble. We've got these 3 sleep outs. They raised $300,000. The sleep outs in New Zealand, it's where, you know, people basically raise sponsorship to go and sleep out overnight, but they're not in Vermont. So New Zealand and Australia, nowhere near as cold as that. But they go and sleep out overnight to raise awareness, but more importantly, to raise money. 300,000 they raised. So they put out not straight away. They went, oh, there was a little bit of indecision. They spoke to us, got rid of the indecision, we're cancelling. And they did it ahead of being ordered to cancel, which is great. So so they did the decision, it wasn't an order. So they're doing a virtual event. And what they're doing is they're getting people to sleep out on their balconies and yards and take selfies. I reckon that they're going to do even better than that. They have, when I wrote this, I said, I hope they do a crisis appeal. They've just posted one in the lab. They did do a crisis appeal as well. So they're emailing to their supporters, event attendees and others, asking for more money to help them get through this time. That's what we need to be doing. Now, this is Darwinian. Many charities, and I hope none of you watching today, won't exist in 2021. I think there will be some mergers to save some charities. I think also some suppliers won't exist. So some really obvious ones that are going to be under threat, event organizing businesses, whether charity or not. Some venues might go bankrupt and blah, blah, blah. Nearly all countries are introducing stimulus packages. You've got one. Make sure that you get FINZ and other organizations and your CEOs to lobby the government to make sure, don't just be selfish, not just charities, but also the businesses that you depend on. So make sure when you are talking to ministers or lobbying and FINZ, please lobby on behalf of the charity industry, charities and suppliers, because we really want to make sure that suppliers can get access to stimulus as well as charities. Otherwise, we're going to see far too many fail. The other thing is, if you are in real trouble, really look at merging or working with other organizations or bringing your project into a larger one. So this is the time. The fundraising world, like the whole world, is different in 2021. We just don't know exactly how. All right, so you're going to get your crisis appeal out. You can really only do a crisis appeal if your finances are being stretched. I don't know anybody who doesn't think that their finances aren't going to be stretched as a consequence of COVID. It is challenging to do it if you've got big reserves, but if you have got big reserves and they aren't just enough that you need, then you shouldn't have, so fair enough. But use a crisis campaign, get out there and say so. If you are a frontline, like that cancer charity that I showed you, and your income is down, like that cancer charity is fearing, then basically, like they did, our ability to provide services is going to be reduced. We need your money, or otherwise we won't be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. We're helping people. Cancer patients are some of the most vulnerable to COVID-19 killing them. All right, so then it's really important. You know, I said to be mailing once a week and emailing twice a week, and social at least every day. Within that, not all asking for money, but majority of them. But we're also going to be doing donor support, donor information, making sure that donors know your continuity plan. I want you to do a one-page continuity plan that makes sense in English and not in NGO speak, that you're going to share with donors, put on your website, that sort of stuff. Not like those awful ones that you've seen from Air New Zealand and Countdown and all those sort of things that are just so corporate, not corporate at all, really friendly, warm, beautiful, first person singular. I'm the CEO, this is what I'm doing. My team are rallying around. I can't believe what wonderful professionals that we've got, including you, the donor, that kind of stuff. So we really want to get warmer communications than all those corporate ones that you're getting. And then towards, as this is beginning to get better, and all those new donors, particularly new donors, we really want to be asking them for monthly gifts. This is the time for monthly giving conversion, because the logic of it is apparent to supporters. Now, I really don't know. People are going to be losing jobs. Businesses are going to be closing. So there are some people who just won't be able to support you. So you could go, well, we're not going to do a monthly giving campaign because lots of people are going to lose jobs and won't be able to support us. That's the wrong thing to say, because some will, but many won't. And those are the people that you're going to still have to get out there. And they're going to be more likely to support you with monthly gifts now than normally. So whilst you might have your pool being reduced by people who are in dire straits right now, but you've also got, sorry, I mean, get a bit emotional on that. We all know people in those sort of situations, but we've still got to get there out and remember, do the best that we can for our beneficiaries. Be very aware of your reserves, because if you do have reserves, so there's one organization that I know that has $10 million reserve, but they need that. Their turnover is about 28 million a year. And that's not an unreasonable amount of reserves, because basically 4 to 6 months reserves is perfectly reasonable for cash flow. But donors won't see it like that. They'll see that 10 million and they won't understand the difference between net assets and assets. But luckily for you, most donors who ask you, most donors won't care, won't ask you questions. Nearly all of them won't. Your best, the ones most likely to would be major donors, and you can explain about net assets and you can explain about turnover. But at first they'll be like, well, they've got 10 million. Why are they asking for more? But you really, and many of you haven't got 10 million, but still remember, for normal people, $200,000 in the bank is a heck of a lot of money. So be aware of your reserves. Most fundraisers don't even know their current reserves of their charity. So look at your own annual reports and get the report from your finance. Go fast now. What are you doing still here? You should be writing your emergency campaign. Now, please do hang around for questions, but we really want to get those emergency campaigns out right now. This is the kind of language that we want to be using. This was from the Lost Dogs Home back in 2003 here in Australia. This is one of the most important letters I have ever written. Really personal, first person singular, personal responsibility. By the way, in a twist of irony, the reason that the Lost Dogs Home gave for its financial crisis was the outbreak of SARS, the bushfires, recent bushfires, and uncertainty following the war and financial stuff like that. So it was a pretty amazing coincidence. Then this is a 2009 one from Starlight, when they were very reliant on their events, and Jill Weeks, who was the signatory to this, was really brave by saying, well, we have been too reliant on events. She was basically saying, yep, I've been here, I'm the CEO, and we are too reliant on events, and we can't do that. I never imagined I would face these issues. Really beautiful, beautiful, strong language, and we really want to be using that kind of language. So I have actually developed with our members. So if you don't know, Moceanic is a membership thing. This is not a membership, join membership push, but you can join and get hold of this template. It is an amazing template, which is basically you just need to fill in the bits in the chevrons. And you've got your letter and a shorter version of this for your first email. Your emails need to be short, the first one 300 words and long, but it's better to get a 300-word email out in a couple of hours from now than a 1,200 one out on Monday, because you're going to get your 300-word one out now, and then on Monday you're going to send your perfect 1,200-word one as well. So just get the bloody thing out as quick as possible if you haven't already. And if you're a boss watching this, please, please, please support your fundraisers here. We are going to turn things around and come out of COVID on the right trajectory, hopefully not going down too steep, and maybe even growing. Don't hold back on your language. Really don't hold back on your language. Do brief internally, because your staff are already very anxious anyway about this virus, about food supplies and toilet roll and all things like that. So they are already anxious. Just make sure that you tell them that you're pretty confident that by doing this, you're going to raise enough money to be able to continue services, because you can't lie, but you want to be worrying staff. Like I said, there's a charity that is going to take this all the way. They're going to do direct response television, possibly radio, press ads, store drops, perhaps, if they're available. Partnerships. A wonderful partnership idea is to partnership, for example, with, and if you're an environmental charity, partner with an environmentally sound energy business and a supermarket, say Countdown, and yourself, and send a package out to all of your donors, basically saying, this is how to pay your bills online. This is how to register with Countdown as a vulnerable person for priority deliveries, if they're doing that. And this is how to pay your bills and how to donate online, and that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of really out your box idea, really helping people whilst making sure that your organization is at the forefront of looking after your beautiful, wonderful donors who need your help right now. So that charity is like, right, we're going for it. We're going to do this big style. Maybe they're going to get annoyed at me for telling everybody else to do it, but I know that most of you won't. So the ones that do will kind of really take advantage of that space, because most charities, the CEOs and the boards are going to be too risk averse. And this is not a time to be risk averse. We see what happens when you're risk averse and you don't close your borders quick enough. Things like that. That's risk averse is not what we want to do with this virus. Okay, keep your donors up to date. Keep really frequency is so important. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you're going to do an emergency or a crisis campaign, it is not one mailing or one email. You're going to do it. You're going to forward emails. You're going to bash them out. You're not going to go, well, you are going to be home because you're working from home, but you're going to be pushing this thing together quickly and regularly. You're going to be just sort of grabbing photocopies of news articles about you, put that in your social media and email. Constant, short emails, short mailings, long mailings. Perhaps right now you're going to have underemployed staff. So many charities, we're getting people working from home, but some people, they're just not, their job doesn't really lend itself to working on a computer. You know, they might normally be making things or managing people or helping people in ways that are suddenly not available to them, but they're still employees. And nearly all of us are going to want to keep paying those people. So what are we going to do? Well, a fantastic, brilliant idea. Let's say, so I'm on the board of WWF, so I'm going to pick on WWF just as an example. Let's pretend that my job is working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander rangers in the Kimberley in Western Australia. So I might call donors and say, hey, hi, hope you're well. My name's Sean. I tell you, where you are, what you do. Now your WWF donors are going to love that phone call. I mean, what a gorgeous phone call. And then I'm going to basically ask them about them. So I am not trained in fundraising calls, because this is not a fundraising call. I'm not going to make a fundraising ask. I'm just going to ring our elderly donors and even our monthly givers who are much younger, perhaps in their 40s and 50s, who are working from home for the first time. I'm going to just ring them. How are you? How's things? Have you seen all the government advice? Do you know what to do? Do you know how to order stuff online? that sort of thing, stuff that we take, younger people tend to take for granted, but older people, many who do take it for granted, but many just don't do this computer thing. So we can be out there helping people. I just think that is one of the best ideas for you and for organizations like Plunkett with huge reaches and databases. Please, guys, do this kind of stuff. You afterwards, you're going to be the charity really, really cared. And we're not doing this for mercenary reasons. We're doing this because we actually do love our donors. As well as those regular mailings, please do webinars, donor webinars. Hey, we just want to tell you what we're doing to keep services up and running during COVID-19, that kind of stuff, how that's going to work, what we're actually doing. Town hall style teleconferences. I don't know if you have any businesses in New Zealand that run this, but these are ways that you give everyone a phone number, they all ring in and they can, and you can talk to them and that kind of stuff. So, but webinars are probably the easiest thing, but with some of you with older donors, you might want to look at town hall style teleconferences. Please don't ask me how to. I have no idea in New Zealand because I don't know the suppliers. Maybe Michelle will Google it, or any suppliers watching, or anyone who's done it, please post it on FINZ Facebook page or something and tell people. Whatever your position, if you're going to do an emergency stuff, well, whether you do an emergency or not, if your organization does things that aren't either implementing services or have a direct measure against raising money or getting new donors, if it doesn't do that, so it could be awareness activities, basically any marketing that isn't direct marketing, stop it right now. Just stop it. No, don't do that. No big flags or TV ads like we're there for you. No awareness advertising, only direct marketing. So you could do TV banners and flags and stuff, although there's nobody out there to read them. So you want to be targeting people at home. But you can do, but do it for direct response. So call this number for information, text us for whatever for you. But just get out there with direct marketing only. Don't do any marketing activities right now. That is not a good use of your money. And don't like the other things, I don't know, like working on an annual report, like why? Just, that might be one of the things that you go, well, actually, it doesn't really raise us any money. It takes up a lot of time. Let's just focus on the crisis. Fight tooth and nail, threaten to resign. Seriously, if you're getting told, don't resign, but threaten to. If you're getting told that you can't have a fundraising budget, first thing to do is before you have an argument about your budget or a discussion with your bosses, before you get there, make sure you know the money that your charity is. A lot of people confuse money with budget. So they say, I don't have the money to do this. They may well have in the charity, but what they often mean is I don't have the budget to do this. Well, go and get the money into your budget. It is not just, I'm not being pedantic here, it's not just semantics, but make sure you know how much money your charity has. So if your board are telling you to cut your fundraising and you know that there's reserves, then no. And actually, unfortunately, even though you exist to help your beneficiaries, you need to cut beneficiary spend before you cut fundraising spend right now, or otherwise that dive is going to get steeper and steeper. Roger Craver was in a guy called Roger Craver, American Guru. He was with us in a webinar last week, and he told us of a charity that in 2008 did that. It cut its fundraising expenditure over services and has basically stayed that size. It's never grown again after a decent growth trajectory. It's still suffering that long later because of that decision. So your temptation is to cut fundraising before services. Don't do that. You might cut a little bit of acquisition or be careful with that. Well, if you do face-to-face, you've got no choice. But don't cut any fundraising activities to your current donors or any fundraising activities to raise money around COVID ahead of services. It really pains me to say that because you don't exist to fundraise, but you might not exist if you make a mistake there. Okay, do tell your donors about your staff, how you're working from home, do little screen grabs of Zoom meetings, things like that. Try and bring them into the whole thing as well. And donor love, donor love, donor love, donor love. Now is the time. So yes, like I said, old people, older people. I just hit 50, so everyone's going, you just tripled your chances of dying from COVID. Like, thanks, guys. I'm a mathematician, so I know I didn't. But anyway, you have a lot of older people who are vulnerable, and many are trapped at home. Really, 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 really get hold of those. Just talk to them. Send them information. If you're doing emails, always put a PPS with the government helpline or the government line, whether you should get tested, and how, if you have like a Samaritans or Lifeline telephone call for people who are basically lonely or anxious. Okay, let's really make sure that you're doing that. Right, monthly givers and online donors, they're younger, but they're still going to be lonely. Many of them working from home at the first time. Don't just ask. So this is a PS that I've nicked out of the template that we pulled together. Please, Alex, I've never had to write a letter quite that before. As I write this, I still can't believe the situation we're in at the 25th meeting. Use meetings as deadlines, by the way. They're really good deadlines. But with your help. So there's my ask, and it's a pretty good ask. So you could do a quick screen grab of that, and that's going to be quite useful. But don't just do that. Put in your PPS as well of what people could do to help. So in Australia, for example, that last paragraph, many people are home alone for longer than usual. Lifeline offers a wonderful service with lovely people to just talk to you and share your experiences. So we'd put the Lifeline phone number there. Okay. Ideas beyond mailings. Yeah, obviously big picture stuff on bigger campaigns, but we can do lots and lots of things as well to really make sure that we're doing that. I'm repeating some of them because they're really important. One idea is sending books and magazines. I think that's a cracking idea. You're spending a bit of money on your high value donors. It's good value right now, but basically relevant material to your mission. All right, your next steps, guys. Get your clear plan on the page. Write it down. You have to have this. Don't let this delay your first emergency campaign, but you must have a plan for how you're going to survive, how your organization is going to survive. It needs to come from the CEO or something. Just one page. This is what I'm doing. People are working from home. We're investing in this new technology, whatever it is, but in really nice, warm, friendly language that is really donor focused. And it's only because of their support that they can do that. And be prepared to pivot, basically pivot time, guys. Now. Now we do have that thing, in case you missed that URL, Christiana is going to post that into the chat again. So please download that. We'll give it to you. If you really do want to get more, a heck of a lot more information, lots of examples of emergency campaigns, templates, talking points for conversations with donors, all things like that are coming. Then you can join. We normally close membership, but we've actually extended it for FINZ friends so that you can join now. It's not normally open right now. It closed last night, I believe, or should have done. Please, you can join. This isn't a big pitch. I'm just saying if you want to get in there and get some extra info. Christiana will put the join thing in there as well. I know there's a lot of members here anyway, so guys, feel free to comment and tell people if it is useful for them. I'm optimistic. Michelle, you're optimistic as well, aren't you? I'm quite optimistic about the future, and this is there will be some organizations that will die or merge, but overall I think we're going to be in a stronger position in the next year.
Yes, I think what's obvious is everyone's coming together. I think one of the coming through the questions here and what's coming into email and questions prior to this is a lot of people asking about what FINZ are doing for the government packages that is being released. So just coming shortly out in an EDM, you will see that just this morning we've drafted a letter to Jacinda Ardern and Grant Robertson. And you're right, the question is, are organizations going to have access to the salary kind of package? At the moment, it's kind of looking very business orientated. So you'll read in the letter that we wrote to them, the thing is, they've only released a high-level kind of almost press statement at the moment, and we're looking for the detail. As we said to them, you know, the devil's in the detail. FINZ is watching closely on what that means. We've expressed how important it is that charities and suppliers have access to this money as well. I will note, though, I have been speaking to some other people, and I did get some information that's quite interesting about the package that's been offered. So there is the wage cap, but I believe that it will only be made available if people can't work from home, which means that some charities may be negatively impacted here, as their IT budgets might not have stretched to adequate work from home capability. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. If you can work from home, it looks like you won't get the money, which is very interesting.
All right, brilliant. I mean, thank you very much for doing that, because that is one of those things that often big bodies like yourselves are too slow to. So let's get that done, and it's all just kicking off in New Zealand. Just one thing I want everybody to do. There's hundreds of you right now, but each one of you, please write down just 3 useful things, or better still, one thing that you're going to do immediately. You feel free to tick them in the chat, write them on a piece of paper, but physically write down 3 useful things that you learned today, and then we'll move on into questions. But that's a really important kind of thing for your head. So just what did you learn that was useful? And now, can I just check, Christiana, is this the wrong link that I'm doing here for, this is the correct link, isn't it, to download the thing? It is the correct link. Good. I just saw some chat about a wrong link, and I was like, I hope it's not this one. You can email me with questions. Email, I am overwhelmed with email, but I will get there. If you know my phone number, you're better off calling me, but I will help. All right, brilliant. There's some people putting some stuff in there. Joe saying, don't stop fundraising, get your clear plan, love your donors. 3 really useful things. I think they were my 3 key points. Up the email and mailing correspondence, says Tanya. Ben in Kentucky, which I think is very far east, New Zealand. Partnerships, stewardships, plan giving. So that's great. Any questions for us, Michelle? Should we just keep going?
There is lots of questions, Sean. I just want to jump in and mention one more thing, because it kind of pulls in a few questions. We've been asked again, you know, what's FINZ going to do about trusts and foundations? So I reached out to Sue from Philanthropy New Zealand, and you're right, at this time of year, you know, particularly somebody had a question around events and if we paid deposits on events and cancellations. And unfortunately, the kind of situation at the moment is, like Sean said, you have to look at your contracts for your event hires, but also you have to be careful on the government recommendations. At the moment in New Zealand, the government are saying, you know, it's still okay for events over 500. So if you're going to cancel, you know, officially cancel an event, it's, you know, you will not get the money back on the, you know, that you've put forward for deposits and things. It's looking likely maybe later next week they might reduce that to 100, but the advice at the moment is please read your contracts with everyone for events, and if you have been given money by a funder specifically for an event, go to your funder right now, tell them the situation, show them the contract, show them the government guidelines at the same time, and they're not going to be, you know, they're definitely understanding. I'm going to post a blog, direct you all to a blog from the CEO of Philanthropy Australia, and this is the kind of this is the voice that's coming from the philanthropy sector, and I think this is something FINZ will be going for. And one I really love is what it takes. So the philanthropy sector are really saying to funders, pay the full cost of services and activities and programs. Many non-for-profits are in a continuous starvation cycle, so just pay what it takes. Also provide unrestricted funding and remove restrictions on existing grants. And another really big thing, which I think is going to be helpful at the moment, is suspend or adapt reporting requirements, reassess evaluation and measurement requirements. So all of these things FINZ is going to be campaigning for through the right channels where we can.
All right, brilliant. So let's get into some. Have you got some questions for me?
I sure do. I'm going to go over some that came in yesterday. So Maria, we have actually financial package. So a lot about capital campaigns, Sean. Sharon Cavill, philanthropy manager from Wellington City Mission, says we're in the quiet phase of our capital campaign and did have an event planned for this week, which we've cancelled. I'd love to hear a little advice about if we should pause the soliciting portion of our campaign for a while.
I don't think you should pause it unless you are focusing all your effort on, unless you can actually pause the whole thing and the actual building or whatever it is, and focus your effort, and because you're focusing on COVID-19. But if you have the resources, I would try not to pause it. Obviously, that event is a no-no, but don't pause it. These are the people that you need to talk to. Some of them might want to redirect money. Somebody who committed 100 grand might be really nervous now. Tell them that you can take 25 grand a quarter while the stock market sorts itself out. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but please don't just drop it just because you think they might not give. There's only one way to find out. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Great. And also, we're now moving on a little bit from Liz Atkinson at SAFE. Given the it's about concerns around growth. Should the focus now be on retention rather than upgrades, or even to delay the upgrades to later in the year? Are we still okay to run programs to convert cash donors to regular donors, or do we just try to maintain status quo? Liz also posted a question.
Oh, that's so many questions. Let's just go one at a time on that one, and I'm sure other people have asked similar. Should we focus on retention over acquisition? Yes, unless you're doing a full-scale kind of COVID emergency or possibly crisis campaign. And then just go with caution, because like any acquisition, it's untested. You have no idea, so test wisely. If you had normal acquisition going on, I would be really nervous about that. I'd probably be wanting to work out if I could replace it with COVID acquisition. But as all acquisition, you know, everyone is a risk and a gamble. So you still put that letter in. There's only one way to find out about that digital campaign or that letter, which is kind of all you can do right now because you can't really do any face-to-face. Whatever the campaign is that you were doing, just really be on top of those results. You be ready to roll out if it works and hold back if it's not. And the other part of that was, should we be converting donors to monthly giving? Absolutely. No time better than now. Really get out there. The only problem if you're using phone agencies is going to be capacity. But don't stop doing that. And the third one was, what was the rest?
It was, are we okay to run programs to convert our regular donors? Yeah, or just maintain.
All right, we got it all.
We covered that. I think Liz also did mention in the chat here that what happens if you've got lots of reserves? Is it unethical to call it a crisis campaign?
If you can only tell the truth. So you could have big reserves and have a crisis campaign. That is not unethical if there is a reason that you have those big reserves, and there is a reason that you're going to be in a financial crisis, because they might not be net assets, or you might actually be planning on using some of them anyway to survive. There's so much to go in there. So you have to make a decision based on the truth.
Yeah,
and I think what you could do there, though, is potentially talk about a crisis aversion, that you don't have, you don't have enough money, or you're worried about money and you don't want to get into a financial crisis.
That's a good idea.
But if you've got big reserves and you're fundraising anyway, then you have a fundraising message to carry on. If you've got big reserves and you've got too much, then don't fundraise and let everybody else get out there, because you're being mean and you should be using your bloody reserves. That's what they're for.
The other, in terms of that word crisis as well, Kate Dolders has also asked us, the government are saying, don't use that term. And she's concerned about the kind of PR impact on charities if we start saying, we're in crisis because of the COVID-19 crisis. How do we kind of play that without kind of turning?
Just don't worry about it. It's a knickers and a twist in the office. The donors don't. It doesn't make a difference. I've worked on many crisis campaigns where that is the only charity in boom times, in crisis. And the biggest worry internally is, it doesn't look good. Looks like we're managerially incompetent and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. The donors, if you did a crisis campaign every month because you were managerially incompetent, then that would be different. But don't worry. Just tell the truth. Never lie. Get out there. Tell people the situation. These are the people that really like you. Do not worry. I have hospitals saying we don't want to be seen to take advantage of this. you're not taking advantage of this. You have a duty of care to help people, and you need more money to do that. Do not worry about things like that. There is no logic in that, and donors will not have big issues with that. It's
Okay.
Of course you will get some people, but don't worry, you always get some people.
Yeah, fair enough. And moving on quickly to Jess Winchester. Hi Jess from Forest and Bird in Wellington here. She's asking, how do we know when or if it's ever inappropriate to ask for donations for the environment? Some people will be pressurizing us to stop fundraising.
Yeah, same thing. The time that you should stop trying to raise money at Forest and Bird is when Forest and Bird does not need money for its mission. You are responsible for your mission. And you do have a duty of care to your donors, but you are responsible for your mission. And in that mission, you need to, your job and the purpose of that organization is to maximize that income. If you think that other things are more important than the work that Forest and Bird does, well, donate to them. But that's right now, you want to be basically asking people for money, and don't stop. Unless you've got too much money and loads in the reserves, in which case do stop, but you haven't, you're Forest and Bird.
Moving on to a major donor question, not many of those. I've had two major donors, Joanne Hunt has said, I've had two major donors cancel their meetings with me. I plan to give them a project proposal. Should I wait out COVID-19 until I meet them face to face to give them the proposal, or should I post it to them with a cover letter?
Neither. Okay, what's your next question? Oh, right, what should you do? What you should do, I think, is you need to get them on the phone, and you want to try and get them to a video meeting. And if not, you want to be on the phone and posting it. So so get them on the phone, get it in the post, get it in email. But basically, one of the best ways to do that is try and get them on the phone. And as soon as you've got them on the phone, hit send on your email saying, I've just sent you this, and then take them through it. But don't hold back. Your success rate may not be as good as normal, but if you hold back, it's 0. So not as good as normal is better than nothing. So again, people worry, they go, oh yeah, but our appeals might not do as well, so we don't want to do an appeal. No, your appeal might not do as well, but it'll do a lot worse if you don't do it. Same with your major donors. Be ready though, of course. All rich people, i.e. major donors, think that they're not rich because they always know someone who's richer than them, and they really don't get it. So they've just lost, say they've got 5 million invested and they've just lost $1 million on the stock market. They think they're broke. They've got 4 million. I mean, but you can't go, but you still got 4 million. That's not the point. We know that generally, even again after the Second World War, stocks recover, things get better. So what you might do is ask them to change that commitment to quarterly. So if you were after 100 grand, get them to commit 250 grand a quarter, just so that they can work out their stock and what have you.
Okay, great. Lots and lots around face-to-face, but this is quite a good summary. We have pivoted to allow face-to-face fundraisers the ability to work from home and tele-fundraise from imported leads. There's a lot of concern they'll be flooding the market with cold list acquisition, yet there's lots of things they can be doing instead. Thankathons, any ideas for short-term calling campaigns these highly skilled fundraisers can be doing that is complementary or helps or doesn't impact other streams, and where those leads might come from?
Well, there wasn't a question there, but she kind of answered the question. If somebody has said, what do I do with all these spare people? Yeah, I wouldn't worry about flooding the world with cold calls. That's not an issue. I mean, one of the good things about because they're not cold calls, are they? They're lists of people who are prospects and stuff. So what I would do is make sure you're doing those calls and monitor them like any other campaign. And if they're not working at a financially viable level, then you stop them. And that's because the market might be flooded. But the market won't be flooded if nobody does it because they're worried about a market being flooded. So much of these things, there's a logical leap that people take an emotional decision worried about something that may happen and then make it happen by not doing that. So I would make those calls, and yeah, thankathons, things like that are really good. And just concerned citizen calls, those sort of things I think are really important. But face-to-face, the question about whether to stop it or not, I thought, what will be the impact of COVID on face-to-face in particular, and the impact on acquisition and retention? There shouldn't be much impact on retention, to be honest. There will be some. Well, we really don't know. But in the financial crises in the past, there's not really. What I would worry about is the acquisition side, because you can't do it. So I would be more interested right now in looking at that face-to-face acquisition budget. And if I'm in a crisis or an emergency position, which nearly all of you are, honestly, I can't think of many organizations that wouldn't be. If you're in that position, then what about full page press ads? What about some different types of direct mail, digital campaigns? You know, what are the things that we can do? But don't just do them. Don't just throw that money at them. Test them like you would normally, and fast though. And be careful and don't make it up. Use expertise. Do not make it up. If you're going to do a digital campaign and you've never done it before, then don't make it up. Hire someone who knows how to do that.
Great. Looking at the university kind of setting, there's a couple of questions from universities. Obviously, there's no, you know, the future of schools and universities is still to be, you know, still to be found out. But what any tips for the education centre who may have larger reserves but could see dramatic changes in the future?
Just that, again, it's all about the truth for education. I think people will really appreciate what's going on for education. Just tell the truth. And I wouldn't mention reserves in nearly all your campaigns. Well, actually, in any of your campaigns, it will only be when people talk to you about them. You just need the right answer. Are there any questions about arts as well? Because we've got education there, but it's the same for education as anyone else. If you've got reserves, what are they for? Tell people.
We've come down to, oh, somebody's asking, should we still do radio and magazine advertising? We'd already contact.
Oh yeah, but change it to COVID.
Yeah. Working for private boys' school, receive very little government funding. Fundraising sort of appeals are not about need, as it's with a charity. However, we're going to feel the pain of the financial crisis. What's the question? Hang on. I was going to write to everyone and tell them. Oh.
Are you? Sorry. Are you? I can't find these questions. Are you in Q&A, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There's so many. So.
Yeah. There's loads.
So can we go from the top, from Jelaine, who is...
I have, yeah, kind of gone down then. What's your best advice for engagement and activities around gifts and wills at this time?
Okay, just a housekeeping thing. Can you click type answer and get rid of the ones that we've answered live? So
sorry, Sean, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's confusing me. So the question was, what do we do about bequest marketing? We still do bequest marketing. The only reason I would hold off from bequest marketing is because everybody is busy and therefore is busy on COVID, and that's where so I would reprioritize your bequest callers your bequest staff to be making phone calls to donors. But if you're not going to do that, then carry on with your bequest marketing, because the better donor care you do right now and the better you do in your COVID marketing is bequest fundraising. Let's face it, being good to your donors. So you see how you've done that? Sorry, Liz Davis going to pick on you. Michelle, now type that we've answered it. It says you're going to answer this question live. Now click that. This is Michelle's first webinar. Click that it's been answered. So that, and then they'll disappear. Otherwise I can see all the wrong ones. If not, Christiana, can you help and just get rid of the questions that we've answered, please?
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing it.
Don't worry. Next question.
Okay, we've just done an emergency bushfire appeal. Can we go immediately to COVID-19?
If you need the money, yes.
We have a supporter who's planning a charity gala in support of our charity. Do you know if anything is in place to cover his out-of-pocket expenses if the event needs to be cancelled?
Oh.
My
really isn't.
Would be to just convert it to a donation.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I don't know, Kate. That is a question to which you kind of want to look after that person. I think you might make a financial decision there. Like, is that person somebody who's always going to support you and help you? Or is it a one-off and things like that? And you really need to get evidence, because your organization can't. It would be ultra vires for you to just give donors money to somebody. And if you haven't got a contract with him, it's all rather awkward. So you would technically need to clear it with the board, and it might be $200. So I don't know. Yeah.
Difficult one. The one here about donor fatigue. How do we combat donor fatigue with so many needs and crises? Is there too many asks?
Well, luckily, there's not too many asks for your organizations, but luckily hardly any organizations are asking, so it really isn't a problem. You'll know it's donor fatigue when people stop responding and your asks are pointless. And very few organizations, I know that was over 300 people here, but very few will actually do that donor care stuff that I told you about. So basically, if you do it, you will be one of only maybe 5 or 10 charities in New Zealand. If you go all out on emergency campaign, you're probably going to only be, again, 5, 10, 15 charities in all of New Zealand. So don't worry, certainly in the next week or two. And then if your results just stop working, then that's the time to make a normal financial fundraising decision. So again, don't predict the future, find out.
Yeah. If our cause is not directly linked to COVID-19, do we talk about the virus in our materials, or should we keep our stories focused on the cause they love and avoid the topic altogether? You've kind of touched on that.
I did, but there's 2 things. One is, COVID-19 is, you're doing animal welfare. How are your nurses and doctors going to get there? Vets, sorry. How are your people going to actually help and look after those animals? So you're going to have to talk about the impact there and how you have a business continuity plan. But also I would basically just still mention COVID-19, even if it's not just I know it's COVID-19, it's happening like that ACF one, but probably a bit better copy, but it doesn't matter. That was quick. Just, you might not have expected it or whatever, but don't give them an excuse not to give. Don't say you might be worried about COVID-19 and, maybe you just don't say that. Just say in your communication, COVID-19 is happening, but at the same time, animals are still suffering. I know you care about animals. That's the kind of message that you want to be putting out there.
Okay, similar kind of vein to everything else, how do we include COVID-19 in fundraising without seeming like we're taking advantage of an opportunity? We want to be sensitive, but keep going.
Yeah, just basically just tell the truth. You especially when you're doing donor communications, then you're talking to people who care about the cause. They want to know what you're doing and how you're going to keep your cause alive. For acquisition, you'll know if it's not working because you won't get any responses. So just basically get out there and find out. That is the biggest worry. Bosses are going, oh, we're going to be too sensitive, blah, blah, blah. You have a duty to your beneficiaries to maximize revenue. And if you're working in COVID now, then even more so. If you're not, then you know that you're potentially going to lose money. You have to tell people this. Just don't tell any fibs. And not talking to people is almost, but not quite a fib, because if you're not actually telling people what's going on, where are you? People will be worried about where the heck are you. So please get out there. And she did follow that up with, would you redirect fundraising budget to COVID-related appeals? Yes, that's the only kind of change that I think you should make to fundraising. Obviously mention COVID in other fundraising, but if you pivot, then yeah, you just dump everything and focus on COVID and make, if that's going to raise you more money. Just like the charities that completely threw out their business plan in the bushfire. They went, right, okay, business plan is out. We're going to pivot, raise the whole year's income in a couple of years, and then the whole business is completely transformed. Thousands more monthly givers, just totally transform the organization. That's what you want to do if you're involved in COVID.
Okay, and we have T Tomika, the name's gone. T Tomika is needing directional support to impact on residential care facility, not looking for fundraising ideas, but practical ideas.
I'm really sorry to Tomika. I have no idea about residential care facilities other than raising money for them. So,
yeah. Thanks for attending, though.
Yeah, but thank you. I don't know how to help there. Sorry.
Another one, practical one. Would you run classes at this time? Classes
not
are
physical ones, online.
Yeah, it's not possible to go online, so
no. Then
yeah,
no. Even though government advice is not to do it, I think the responsibility for you is to help the spread amongst your fellow citizens in New Zealand. So no, but that's a personal opinion, and it's pretty strong because I'm a mathematician and I know what exponential looks like.
Thanks, Sean. And looking down further, we've got Jolene's providing counselling and welfare services for traumatised children and their families. Isolation due to COVID means we're providing our services via technological means. Our emergency appeal will ask our donors for money to improve our technological means such as Zoom and tablets so that we can still provide much needed services. Is this the right topic?
It is.
Yes.
It's not, the way you've written there, that Jolene, is not the right way to write it to donors, because we're donors, remember, or you might not know this, but anyway, in any communications asking for money, process is nearly but not quite irrelevant. So what we're trying to do here is saying, this is how we used to do it, and this is what we're doing to keep our service continuity, but we need to raise money for the technology. You don't need to explain Zoom and tablets and stuff, but in your copy. But you might actually include like examples of a Zoom meeting, a screen grab of a Zoom meeting. You don't need to go on about it, whether it's Zoom or whatever. You go, we are delivering through this. So actually show people it in action. So show the outcome rather than the process. So you need money because this is happening and we need to do it like this. And I need money to make that happen. So focus on the outcome. We do a lot of work in the lab around language, about first person, singular, taking responsibility, focus on outcome. Your offer has to be something you can take a picture of, various different things like that.
Okay.
Someone's saying no to radio magazine advertising. Yes to radio magazine advertising on COVID. Yes, 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 yes.
What's your best advice for engagement?
We've talked about that one.
Done that one. Should we be running acquisition campaigns?
Yes, this is the question. Should we be running acquisition campaigns with an emergency? We've answered that one. Yes, the answer is yeah.
And we've done the crisis.
Carefully, but really carefully. Nobody knows how they're going to respond.
We've done that one.
Oh, have we? I didn't see that one.
It was Kate's one about the crisis, the word crisis.
Yeah, don't worry. Your charity's crisis. Don't talk about COVID crisis then if the government's saying don't do that. But do talk about your crisis and use the word crisis if your charity is in a crisis.
What are your thoughts on making applications to trust and grant funders in the coming months? Should we complete applications earlier if possible in case they reduce their funds available due to the impact on their finances from COVID-19? Well, I might jump in there, Sean, because given what I've heard from Philanthropy New Zealand and what seems to be coming out of Australia, is that there's going to be a big push on funders increasing their pots of money that they've got to give. So I'm not so sure that would, I think there'll be more money hopefully from funders.
I hope so too, but also funders, stocks and shares have just plummeted as well. So yeah, I agree with you that they'll probably allocate more of their capital, but they've just lost a load of capital as well. Also, in terms of should we go earlier, I think basically it's always good to get applications. I mean, let's face it, nearly all of us put our applications in on the last day. I mean, getting them out earlier is never a bad thing. Anyway, the reason I wouldn't get them out earlier is if I wanted to use those people who would be doing that to be calling donors. I think there's higher priorities potentially for them.
Back to face-to-face, there is no government directive to stop, which means that some charities are still bound to contracts and could experience financial penalties for early termination. Should we just suck it up?
It's a very, very good question about face-to-face. Basically, it's absolutely immoral and irresponsible for them to respond like that. So I would check the lines of your contract. Ask them, I mean, most of you, in face-to-face, most of us have a contract that basically says we'll get this number of donors, blah, blah, blah. And you can stop for any reason, or if numbers aren't good enough or anything like that. So try and find, if they are going to be sticklers, see if there's a way that you can stop that activity without saying because of COVID-19. But the business that turns back to you and says, well, you're going to have to pay, is probably one of those ones that's going to be bankrupt. So just hold out because they probably won't survive it if that's their attitude. So yeah, and it is awful. I want face-to-face agencies to survive. I want you to support those. One smart charity I spoke to said, well, we're pretty sure that this great supplier is not going to survive. We're going to buy them. So they will rescue them. And any large charities who do face-to-face in New Zealand, I would seriously be having that conversation about buying shares in a face-to-face agency to save it and basically to own it. I don't think that's a bad idea. Going in 50% of the shares, something like that. Keep people going. Ask them to get the people working from home, calling your donors, even calling your donors to say thank you. Make that part of the purchase price. So you could keep the face-to-face staff going by giving them, by employing them, contracting them, of course, because of privacy, to make calls to ask donors how they are, maybe asking for money. And in return for which you get 50% of the shares. It's a really good investment for charity. So things, well, obviously do your due diligence, but there's things like that I think that we really need to think differently, because we want those, we don't want them to go bust.
Yeah.
But also they're employed casuals, so their costs are, they're just not employed casuals. I mean, it's really annoying because they have to retrain people and stuff like that, and they do have ongoing costs, but they're not that significant in face-to-face agencies.
Yeah. Okay. Claire Anderson has asked, they were going to send out our tax receipts via email this year. Should we redirect back to hard copy in order to maximise the chance to send a weightier donor love piece?
Just do both.
With an email and send a separate donor love piece without the tax receipt component?
It really doesn't matter, just get it done. But I mean, you definitely want those nice donor care pieces, but yeah, whatever. In Australia, it's illegal to send both, I think, because you only allow one tax receipt, because otherwise you could double dip. Oh, I don't know how that works, but I would just be, you could send both, but it doesn't. The tax receipt itself is not a donor care piece. So if you normally email it out, just email it out. Send a beautiful donor care piece. But more importantly than the donor care piece, you know, well, not more importantly, as important is making sure that we are asking as well.
And I think this one's pretty straightforward. Philip would like to know, what about street appeals?
I think same as face-to-face. I mean, let's look at it like this. Charities have a social responsibility, which is greater than normal businesses, right? If somebody gets COVID and dies, and it's through your contact with one of your street fundraisers or one of your face-to-face fundraisers or door-to-door fundraisers, just think about the fallout for your charity as an outcome. And remember, right now in New Zealand, you've got a few cases. So every case is being traced, and they're trying to find all of the people that you got contact with. You've seen the stories about the unfortunate couple, Brits, who infected whatever it was, 40 people. So, you know, you don't want now one of those stories breaking about you. And also, it's just the wrong thing to do right now. New Zealand is ahead of the game. Hopefully you've all seen the video from the Italians saying, hey, these are the things we wish we'd have done 10 days ago. So do them now. And one of those things is stop things like face-to-face and what have you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Stay at home.
Alison Duncan would like to know, is now the right time to be finalising and sending our supporter connection survey?
This is the toughest question for me, Alison, because I love supporter connection survey. It is the most important communication normally. I would actually consider postponing it. Oh, that really hurts because I'm trying to persuade people to do 2 a year, never mind 1 a year. I would only postpone it if you're in crisis or emergency mode. If you're not, then get it out there, but make sure you alter it a wee bit to be relevant in the COVID crisis. Like now more than ever, I really need to know and understand our donors. I really need your email addresses. I'm worried about whether the postal system may, you know, whatever the right language that you want to use is. But I would get that thing out to people after COVID if you're doing an emergency, or now if you're not doing an emergency or a crisis. Emergency and crisis is the most important thing for you to do above any of those normal things, because it's really going to help your major donors, your direct marketing, more than anything else would if you do it.
Okay, Jenny Smith, it's our 20th year this year with a plan to celebrate with a fundraising event in October. Should we keep planning? Thoughts are acknowledging COVID-19 and that we are pausing gatherings, but we are planning on a celebration still to get the date in people's diary. Are we on the right track? I
don't think so. I really don't know what's going to happen by October. One of the big advantages of what New Zealand's done in the early lockdown and things, and the more you as citizens do, means that the rate of infection will go up slower, but it also may mean it lasts longer, which it's just, anyway, the maths of this are very interesting. But basically, I would still be very nervous about an October event, even though it seems so far away. Where are we now? March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, I mean, it is what, 6 months away. No, not that much.
Well,
Anyway.
I'm going to maybe disagree with you there, Sean, because there's an announcement coming out tomorrow, Jenny, and October is good for FINZ.
But just be really careful. I would still go out and make sure you have a virtual event, and make sure that you are really cautious about it. I just don't think you'll get that many registrations. I mean, and also no one gives a shit about your 20th year apart from you guys, by the way. So it's just got to be a really good event anyway. That's the key. So just make it. I love anniversaries because they often give you an excuse to get more budget for fundraising from your board. Are you sure that a fundraising event is the best way to use that budget anyway? But if it is, and you're an event-based organization, then yeah, October is just too long.
We're coming to the last few questions.
So one last thing on that. The advantage with not doing it in October, but making it virtual and just making that decision now is you make the decision. You get to choose that, giving you time to plan for a different kind of product. Whereas if for whatever reason you can't have that event in October, and you won't know until, let's say, 3 months before that, you haven't got really the same level of time to make those decisions around.
Great, and our campaign, another one about in May, involves and relies on the community coming together to eat. Postpone the campaign, what time period? Well, I think you just listened to Sean.
I did do that, but I think also that's a wonderful one, like the sleep out, eating together, turn it around. Yes, sure, try and get it along later in the year. Say, we're postponing this event until it's safe. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to do a virtual version where we want people doing selfies of the food, people cook the best they can with whatever's left, those sort of things. Just try and make something nice about it. You could have different themes and what have you, but try and get people to cook at home with selfies, that kind of stuff. Because you'll make money from that, and then you may or may not have your event a bit later on.
We provide arts and crafts activities for people with injury, disabilities, and wondered if we should continue at this time.
If people with injury and disabilities, it depends on, well, some of them will be vulnerable people, as in vulnerable to COVID. I'm sure you've seen the hospitalization rate. The worst, I think, is in Italy and Iran. And the death rates are so high that you really don't want to be having any responsibility for bringing people who are vulnerable into contact with anybody at all. So I would be pretty keen on not doing so. I think the earliest that you probably could consider any kind of event might be July, August. Anything before that, I would definitely be saying it's not on. And then the earlier you make your decisions for events after July, August would be, for me, the earlier you make a decision, the better. Right now, if I was an event-focused organization, I would be stepping back and say, you know what? Everybody's been telling us, and we've always known the vulnerability of event focus. We're always dependent on bums on seats and panic at the last minute and what have you. If you make most of your money from events, this is your time to redirect budget and tell people why you're doing that. And it's a good time to really try and broaden your portfolio.
Great. And another one about planning for August. We will be planning our public art competition fundraiser for our arts and craft program in August, but thinking we should defer.
Oh, it's right on the edge. It's like, just be ready to make the decision quick and think creatively, what could you do with it? Make sure you've got a contingency planned right now.
Okay, and Rosemary, if we do not have an individual giving program and regular communications with our donors, how would you suggest we reach out to our donor database and ask to assist now?
I'm slightly confused how you have a donor database but no giving program. Is this just, it might be lottery donors, or I guess. Well, I mean, if you're legally able to contact them and they're on your database, you should do, I would just send them an emergency appeal and recognize their support in whatever way that they've done. I do like Alison's question there. Go, Michelle. Does she mean go or does she mean go?
Get out of here. You're useless. And wow, isn't that the last question? Isn't
We got more questions. Yeah, we can keep going.
We've got one here, which is very in FINZ conference in May. It was in it's June. Now been held in October? Question mark. Well, actually, I just remembered. I've got the comms forward. You've heard it here first, folks. Yes, unfortunately, we have had to.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, we have postponed the FINZ conference to the 6th to the 8th of October. And a video is going to come out this afternoon. And again, it's actually a bit of a crisis video for FINZ. Please still register for conference. We must have a conference this year or we will not exist. So we're about to start a crisis campaign here at FINZ. So great question. Thank you, Ingrid.
Good question. While we answer these last questions, let's look on the bright side. There have been some awesome memes around here. So, we were all expecting anarchy and zombies, and we got home offices and no toilet paper. That really nailed it for me. This is one from my colleague, Jeff Brooks. That's his tombstone. He sent us this one. He died because he touched his face. So that's kind of cute. And this one is one of the most popular ones. Me and my co-workers logging into our meetings remotely. So yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And honestly, I have no idea about medical stuff, but this is the cure. That's a great one, isn't it? The people younger than probably me won't have any idea what that's talking about. But anyway, that is the cure. So,
fabulous.
You got any more questions? Oh, Jenny.
But one last question, Jenny. Due to send out our quarterly newsletter with updates on breast cancer research, a trial participant story, researcher promotion, should we pause on this and focus comms on COVID-19 and our response, support, appeal, and do the normal newsletter template next month, judging at the time, the climate, and it's appropriate? Yeah,
totally. I think, well, only if you're going to do a crisis or emergency campaign, then you need to pivot and focus all your energies into that. If not, then just carry on your normal fundraising, including that newsletter, and make sure that in that newsletter, it refers to COVID. I don't know what the purpose of that newsletter is, whether it raises money or whether it's just donor care. Not just, donor care is good. But either one, there's possibly a better device right now in COVID to either be good for donor care, or like some of the ones that we've discussed in this webinar, or to raise money. You might be better off with a COVID appeal. So either way. Wow, we really got into all those slides. Hey, everybody, thank you. There's still like half the people left, even though we've gone so much past time. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Sean and Christiana, thank you so much. This couldn't have happened without you. And I think you've added such value to FINZ and its members at this really anxious, terrifying, and just uncertain time. So thank you so much. And I think this is the start of a real community for FINZ. So thank you.
Sorry, Alison DeMarco wants the fish cartoon again. She almost certainly is doing a screen grab, I reckon. So yes, sure, you can have the fish cartoon again there, Alison. What a lovely note to end it on. Thank you so much for that bit of levity in what is not at all a pleasant situation for us all. Thank you very much, New Zealanders and Kentuckian and a couple of fly-in Aussies. Lots of love to all of you. Look after yourselves, your family. Make sure you remember to look after your own mental health in this time. It is anxiety inducing, and yeah, don't panic. And basically look up those prepper friends that you had that you kind of left because they came preppers, and look them up and give them a call and be nice to them right now. You know what a prepper is, Michelle?
No.
Preppers are the people that kind of have bunkers and they've already hoarded tons of tins of food.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for the government to come down on them, and they've got their whole thing. So little prepper friends in the country, drop in visit.
Yeah, and pick up the phone and make those phone calls and emails and make sure those isolated fundraisers don't feel isolated.
Okay, brilliant. And we're getting lots of hugs back. Virtual hugs. Real hugs are too dangerous right now.
Awesome.
We'll say goodbye. Michelle will call you back afterwards to do a little bit of a debrief, and take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. This is that awkward bit where everyone's still there and we're going, hi still.
Bye. Oh,